All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you all for being here this evening. Today in City Council, my administration, along with the Department of Housing and our partners on the City Council, introduced the Green Social Housing Ordinance. Green Social Housing is a housing production tool that will enable us to construct financially and environmentally sustainable mixed income housing, answering the need for affordable housing and environmental justice in Chicago. Both our challenges with climate change and housing shortage requires a people-centered approach in our solutions, and it ultimately works to address them both head-on. I'm proud to do that, and to do that with this ordinance. When passed, this ordinance will establish an independent nonprofit developer to finance, acquire, and operate sustainable mixed-income housing developments across the city of Chicago. We have long said that housing is a human right. With the Green Social Housing, we are taking another step forward in making this right a reality in Chicago. This nonprofit developer, the Residential Investment Corporation, will transform how the city builds housing and add a critical new tool to our toolkit that works with or without federal subsidies. This is especially timely as the Trump administration slashes HUD and threatens life-saving federal programs that Chicagoans rely on every single day. Chicago is not going to sit idly by. We are taking the lead here at home to build affordable mixed-income housing, eradicate the housing supply crisis, and achieve environmental justice for all of our families. This ordinance upholds a promise my administration made last year when we passed the Housing and Economic Development Bond. That bond included an allocation of $135 million to create a new, low-interest, green social housing revolving loan fund. Importantly, because this program will be funded by that bond, it does not require ongoing future appropriations or pose any new challenges to our city budget. The Green Social Housing financing model will reduce high construction costs through effective partnerships with private sector builders and by reducing requirements to comply with complex, costly federal rules. At the same time, it will take the critical step of increasing the number of housing units in the city that prioritizes tenants' well-being over profit. This is a sustainable, smart way to invest in affordable housing, and I'm proud that Chicago will lead the way. I look forward to working with my colleagues on the City Council to get this done. We are committed to developing our communities. That commitment is what led us to put forward our GO bond plan, this capital bond plan. This is an investment in the infrastructure that our residents rely upon, from street lighting to filling potholes and repairing bridges. Ignoring these needs will only cost us more in the long run. This is an investment in our residents' safety and quality of life. We are committed to continuing conversations with our budget team, our CFO, and council members to find sustainable solutions for investing in our people and resolving our financial challenges. And finally, today, the City Council, we honored Black History Month, along with local leaders, the Honorable Carol Mosley Braun, Larry Huggins, both who have made incredible marks in Black history and Chicago history. The City of Chicago will continue to celebrate Black History Month this evening at our annual reception. And of course, we will do this every day moving forward. We cannot forget the accomplishments and contributions of Black folks in the city of Chicago. It's what has made this city the greatest city in the world. So we cannot forget that diversity is our greatest strength for all, and with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Hi, Mayor.
Hi.
How are you doing?
I'm doing fine, thank you.
I'm delaying while I open my questions tab. Sorry about that.
You're doing just fine. It's okay.
On your bond proposal, alders in debate today criticized your administration for not providing the payment timeline sooner until after the Finance Committee vote. Do you think alders should have been able to consider that timeline before voting on this in committee?
Here's what should be in ultimate consideration. How do we actually invest in people? That's the most important thing here, right? And so there's no debate around the infrastructure needs that we have. This is a matter of safety, whether it's potholes, streets that need adequate street lighting, our bridges. That's what's most important here.
Do you regret not providing that timeline sooner?
Well, again, here's what's most important, but I'm certainly happy to allow our CFO respond to that.
I don't like to interrupt the mayor, but I do want to say we provided all of that information in briefings prior to the Finance Committee and in the Finance Committee meeting and follow up through the chair responses. That information was provided ahead of the vote.
Got it. And with concerns over the proposed payment schedule
I'm sorry
for
here.
the-
I think we just have time for one questions today. Can you all keep people focused here? Thank you, though.
Hi, Mayor. Alderman Matt Martin filed an ordinance today that would prohibit Chicago police and other city employees from participating in extremist activities, which could be being a member of an extremist group or recruiting people to join. Do you support making that a reason to discipline or terminate employees, especially considering CPD previously did not punish cops with ties to the Oath
Look, we
Keepers?
need to make sure that the best and the brightest are serving and protecting the streets of Chicago. As far as making sure that we eliminate the malfeasance that matriculates in any division of government, whether it's law enforcement or education or any other critical public servant, we have to have strong guidelines to ensure that the best and the brightest are serving our city. We'll continue to examine what's been presented, but again, my goal is to make sure that all of our departments have individuals that have the same love and regard for anyone, regardless of their ethnicity, their sexual orientation, or their background.
Good afternoon, Mayor. On the green social housing ordinance, can you expand a little bit on how the compliance with federal rules will be reduced or something to that effect that you had mentioned?
Our Commissioner Castaneda.
Good afternoon. There is no federal money in this program. So this is all going to be funded wholly by the Housing and Economic Development Bond, which means that costly burdens that are placed when you have to use federal funds will not be, these projects will not be subjected to that.
Good afternoon, Mayor.
Good afternoon.
Last week, your Chief of Staff, Cristina Pasiones-Ayes, said that you would abide by the Ethics Board's ruling that requires you to allow the public into the gift room. Several of us have requested entrance, and we've not heard back, and I believe you made statements saying that the video would be sufficient. Can you clarify, please?
Yes, the video is sufficient, right? So the ordinance that has been on the books for some time, we've always been in compliant with it. We've actually taken a step forward by providing more transparency than any other administration. So it's not just about the press. So any person who lives in the city of Chicago or otherwise can go and click on the video and see the T-shirts, the hats, scarves, or whatever else has been donated to the city that, of course, I did not accept, that we accepted, but that we did not receive in a personal way.
Good afternoon, Mayor.
Good afternoon.
So this morning, tents at the homeless encampment were removed from Gompers Park on the northwest side on one of the coldest mornings of the year, weeks before a planned accelerated moving event is scheduled to happen. Park District officials said the crews removed smokestacks and propane tanks used to heat tents, but tents were also removed. Can you say if the people from the encampment are being matched with any housing now that tents are being removed? And is the city removing any more structures?
Thank you. My Chief of Staff, Pasiones-Ayes, will speak to that.
Hey, good afternoon. So what was done today was sort of like a intermediate step before the accelerated moving event that's scheduled for the first week of March. Because of the extreme weather, we wanted to make sure that we got individuals from outside of the cold into shelter, but then the next step is to actually get them into more stabilized housing, which will happen through the accelerated moving event. So this was just an intermediate step leading up to that event.
Okay, so people were connected with shelter?
Correct.
Okay. Can you say how many?
I don't have the latest numbers at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Johnson, when you announced your plan to borrow another $1 billion and agree to $2 billion plus in debt, a number of people, Chicagoans, said to me, black and brown, by the way, they said that they thought that was a very, to use your favorite word, raggedy plan. They questioned your ability to count, to do simple math. A number of people said that it reminded them of the DEI scams that Elon Musk is exposing on the federal level through Doge. And of course, a lot of people just simply said it's taxation without representation because people, Chicagoans who aren't even born yet, will be paying. Yeah, well, I am trying to ask. I know he doesn't want to answer my question, but they said that it's taxation without representation because a number of people who aren't even born yet will still be stuck with this debt. Long after obviously you've been voted out of office. What do you say to these people?
So this is about investing in people,
No.
and that's what this is ultimately what this investment entails. That we're investing in our infrastructure, we're investing in our public safety, whether it's potholes, whether it's infrastructure. This is what the people of Chicago elected me to do, which is to invest in people.
Good. Good afternoon, Mr. Mayor. What tweaks, if any, are you going to make in the payment schedule for the bond issue? Are you going to make any changes?
There's already, it's a good question. There's already flexibility within this structure. I'll let our CFO speak to that.
Sure. The bond financing plan that was put forward was what we sort of call most conservative financing plan, so the most expensive. It was not aggressive in nature. We are going to look at a number of different scenarios, which we will be reviewing and working with aldermen on. But the ordinance provides flexibility as far as how the bonds will get financed, and which is standard for all of our bond ordinances. And we have the ability to sell the bonds based on what market conditions are and what is most advantageous at the time.
Hey, Mayor.
Hey.
Were you aware of the allegations of bullying surrounding DK's Commissioner Clene Hedspeth, and do you believe they warrant any action?
So I don't discuss personnel issues.
Hi, Mayor.
Hi.
My colleagues reported earlier today that your administration has outlined fresh plans for CPS to pick up the MEABF pension payment, including issuing $242 million in bonds. How will you make the case to stakeholders that any new borrowing to cover this cost would be fiscally responsible?
Yeah, here's what's responsible: actually investing in our children. That's what I'm doing. Now, look, I know that there has been dreams in the past about having an administration that actually believes that we have to fully fund our schools. I wholeheartedly believe that. And we will continue to make sure that those individuals who show up to work every single day that retire, that we are also protecting their retirement, right? That's important, right? We know what it looks like when we don't pay into our retirement. That's why we are course correcting now. The provisions that we have put forth are setting ourselves up to not only stabilize our retirement, but to save the taxpayers $2 billion, over the life of these next few years. So again, the people of Chicago voted for me because they know that I believe in public education. Ensuring that every single child has a high quality education, that's what these investments are about. Protecting our education also means investing in those who actually do the work. And so we will continue to put forth provisions and plans to ensure that every single child has a quality education and that we're actually providing a real commitment to securing people's retirement.
Hi, Mayor. There was a kind of procedural vote on the bond plan, right, to send it back to committee. It was very close, 27 to 23. Does that signal to you that, between now and I believe next week, when you expect a vote, that you have some work to do? Do you think the bond plan can get passed as is without any further amendments, tweaks?
Well, there's always work to do. We'll continue to listen to people. But again, the most important thing that people have to know about what we have put forward is this is about responding to the infrastructure needs that we have in Chicago. The residents, and my chief operations officer can tell you this, the residents want potholes filled. The residents want to make sure that we're shoring up our bridges. The residents want to make sure that we are providing lighting on our streets because there's a direct correlation between those type of investments and public safety. That's what this investment is about. I was elected to invest in people, and that is exactly what I'm doing.
Good afternoon, almost evening.
Yeah.
Do you have any personal feeling on the speed limit motion that was voted down today, and also the discussion at the end on the Rule 59. Do you feel that it's time to go back to pre-COVID procedures with alders attending meetings in person?
I don't often, offer up my personal feelings, but I think in this instance it's appropriate. Look, having safe streets is important, and I believe that everyone who spoke today recognized that and are committed to that. Appreciate the work that Alderman LaSpada has done around this. And there are some real challenges that we have in terms of the equitable nature of what we are all desiring in this city, but that has been absent. So my personal feelings are we have to address the inequities that have existed in our city for too long. And there's work to do that, while also ensuring that we are providing safe streets and passage for pedestrians, bike riders, other people who drive cars. Look, traffic death is real. It's gut-wrenching. And anything and everything that we have to do to ensure that our streets are safe, those discussions have to be urgent, while also recognizing that unfortunately our city has had a long history in how the distribution of certain laws have a different impact depending on where you live.
Hi, Mayor.
Hey.
I'm all the way back here today. I wanted to ask you about the $27 million that's going to the family of Angela Parks. She was killed by a driver fleeing police. There's been a lot of discussion about CPD's pursuit policy. Do you believe that pursuit policy is where it needs to be? Or do you agree with some folks like Alderman Riley and others who think that that pursuit policy is too restricted and should be loosened?
Well, look, I think all of us are still grieving and are deeply horrified by what happened to this person. And to have your life altered dramatically and then ultimately lost it's a painful reminder of why we have to put forth policies that reduce those circumstances from occurring. As far as where else we can go, with this particular policy, what I've expressed to the superintendent and other advocates, constitutional policing is still front and center. We do have to examine a little bit deeper how past practices have harmed folks. Look, in terms of even, the consent decree, since I've been in office, it went from 3% compliance at the top to 16%, but at the preliminary level, we're at 88% of compliance, and the secondary, just as before we actually put forth those provisions into action, we're at 52%. A lot of work to be done, don't misunderstand me. And to the extent in which we can keep people safe with constitutional policing, that is the ultimate goal here. So that's where my focus is going to remain, ensuring that the type of policing that has to happen to repair trust, while also moving towards what we've been working on, driving crime down. I don't know if this is appropriate to just attach it, but I do think it's important that we do note that as policing gets better and we put forth the full force of government, keeping people safe is the ultimate goal. Eliminating those type of encounters so it doesn't harm people, but violent crime is down in Chicago. Since I've been in office, it continues to fall. So having a balance where there's real constitutional policing that provides, law enforcement with the strength that it needs to carry out its responsibility, while also ensuring that we are moving in a more progressive interaction, that's the balance there. And I'm not saying it's been easy, especially because, many of the settlements that we're dealing with right now predate many of us in this room, right? So a lot of work to be done, but finding that strong balance between the two, that is the work, and I'm committed to doing that.
Hi, Mayor.
Hi.
In Governor Pritzker's budget proposal that he introduced today, he included a ban on cell phones in classrooms, except in the case of an emergency or a threat. Is that something you support?
Well, look, it's a proposal. I have not had a chance to look at all of the provisions that have been put forth in the governor's budget. I will examine his proposal, but at this moment, I don't have a position on any of the things that he's put forth because it just came out today. But our team will look closely at all those provisions and proposals. But here's the part that's most important to me. We have to do better in terms of how we fund our education system. And everybody's in agreement with that. We all have to do better. We have to make sure that the Chicago Transit Authority that pumps out the greater share of revenue as well as usage, that there's an equitable distribution coming from Springfield for our transportation system. And to be very specific around education, we're talking about bilingual education, special education, transportation within our public schools to get people, move people around. As I said before, there are revenue ramifications, right, to his proposal, and there are municipalities around the state that believe that the LGDF has to increase in order for us to be able to fund the critical services. Local government, the personal property replacement tax, we're looking at that, how to make sure that the losses that corporations are allowed to carry don't harm our ability to actually generate revenue to respond to the needs like housing, education, healthcare, transportation, and having good paying jobs. So there's a lot to unpack there. And our team is certainly committed to doing that work to understand those proposals, but again, staying laser focused on what the people of Chicago need as the economic driver for the entire state of Illinois. Jose, all right, thank you all very much. Have a good evening.